Hi, I'm Blake Rayhans.
And I'm Stacie Mallon.
And you are listening to the Optimized AF podcast.
We know life is hard. We're here to make it simple.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Optimized AF podcast. This is Blake.
And I'm Stacie. And we are excited, as usual, to bring you some episodes in sequence this time around goal setting. And this is something that Blake and I both professionally and personally do frequently. So we thought it would be great to launch into December with some goal setting framework. And I would prefer you not wait till January 1st, but cliches are cliches for a reason, maybe because it feels like a fresh start and it works, but you don't have to wait till January 1st.
No, I'd actually recommend you don't as well. But again, if a New Year's resolution is your thing and you want to kick things off on a particular day, so be it. You know, whatever works for you that gets you the motivation. But the deal is that this time of year, we've got a lot of things going on, holidays. It's a new, different circumstances this year, of course, but all the more reason to take a very intentional and active, purposeful role in setting some goals in front of yourself that you can set a path on to achieve those things. That's how we improve, right? Things that we talked about it in, probably every episode to a certain degree about being intentional and having a purposeful, active role in your life, not bouncing through by happenstance. And so in this 3-part series about goal setting, what we're hoping to bring you guys is some of the things, as Stacie mentioned, that we've seen work, that we apply to our own lives and also clients that we coach. And understand, though, that if you have a system that works for you, great. If you do some research and you find something else out there, wonderful. But we're hoping also, though, that this will be beneficial and knowledgeable in how you can simplify that goal setting process. Because let's face it, setting goals actually isn't that easy. A lot of people struggle with this. Now, we're breaking it into 3 parts because there's certain parts of the goal setting process that are actually the hard parts that you and I've both dealt with, again, with clients or with ourselves. The part of setting the goal isn't really that hard. I think people get it confused because that's actually the part that I think people start to get a little more comfortable with, like, oh, well, I want to run in that race. We talked about it this morning a little bit. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to do setting a target isn't necessarily always the hardest part. It's the pieces around it that set you up for better achievement that can be difficult.
And our goal in this 3-part series is to help you break this down into bite-sized pieces that you can employ immediately as you listen to these episodes. So episode 1 is really focused on what do you choose? How do you choose? How do you choose what goal to achieve? And Blake just gave some examples, but many of those goals are complex. There are lots of pieces that lead to, I gave running a race as an example this morning. So we'll use that as to be illustrative. Sure. There's been lots of debate this week between James and I on what have I been saying? I'll have to remember later. But there's a word that I've used pontificating. I've been using the word pontificating.
Oh, fuck. Where's the swear jar? There it goes.
And apparently I was using it incorrectly. So hopefully I'll try to use my language wisely this week. But I think how and what you choose as your goal has to do with everything we've talked about leading up to this, which is mindset, intention, practice, and habit. So we wanted to take all of season 1 as we wrap season 1 and kind of pull it together in one thing that you can apply immediately, which in this case, we've decided to focus on goal setting. And so for running a race, let's say, so right now I can easily run 3 miles. Not easily. It's a little bit of a challenge, but I can do it. And I'm at about, just south of a 10-minute mile when I do a 3 mile. And that's not great, but let's be real, 43 years old, and I'm not a runner. I've never been a runner. So I feel good about that. But I was like, I really need a goal, and I would like to set a goal for running. It's something that I've started to really enjoy. But one option would be, okay, I'm going to run a marathon. And I'll just tell you, I ran a half marathon when I was 18 and I almost died. So I feel like I'm not up for a marathon. So the first thing is, that we're going to break down is talking about, is it achievable? The second is that's just very complicated. Training for a marathon is about your food, your water, your training schedule. Like it gets to this place of the level of complexity is high. And with everything going on in my life right now, I don't need more complexity. So what is an achievable goal that has far less factors? And so I chose to have the target in January. There's the PF Chang's Rock and Roll Marathon Series here in Phoenix. And it's in January, and they have a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and a full marathon. And so what level felt right? Well, a 5K is really what I'm already doing, right? So it's like 3.2 miles. So I could choose to improve my time for a 5K. That's an option. But I thought, it would be kind of fun to stretch the length of the race, which is do a 10K, which is a little more than double of what I'm comfortable doing today. So I'm using that as an example, and we thought it would be a good example for people because a lot of people say, I want to lose 40 pounds or 30 pounds or 20 pounds. The complexity of that goal is high. There are lots of factors that play into whether or not you can lose 20 pounds. So the first step is thinking about something that you can achieve that is simple, that there aren't 10 factors to get to that goal.
Yeah, well, I think what you also did in that I want to call out is you did an assessment of where you are currently. And I think that's really important for people to understand is that when you're looking at setting out goals on where do I want to improve, where do I want to set a goal to get myself to another level, you have to first stop and do a little reflection on, well, where am I at currently? And if it's, in this case, it's a fitness goal. So your fitness goal in regards to what it would take to get to a certain achievement of a 10K, not to just be able to run it. I don't think it's like, I want to stumble across the finish line. Like I want to compete. I want to put up a good time and I want to complete the race. But in order to do that, to your point, there's a lot of other things that go into it. Water intake, sleep schedules, nutrition. You have to physically work yourself into the rhythm of running to get up to that level. But unless you know where you are currently, you really won't have a good idea of how or what to improve. So I think the first place to start for people is I want to bring everyone to the awareness around sort of the and I've seen it labeled a couple different ways, but what I've seen is the 5 pillars of life. And these are they're essentially buckets that anybody has at their disposal. You can choose to highlight them or not, but it's really around relationships and love, career, work, whatever you do to make a living, the money situation, finances, or also time. I've seen worked into that category in terms of creating time, right? So that's very valuable. So it goes into that money finance one. As we were talking about health and fitness. And then the fifth one is like personal growth or spiritual growth, which I could see you separating those out to a certain extent, but a lot of times they're connected. So what I would really recommend people do is you start looking at each of those areas of your life and figure out what your current state is. What are you doing really, really well? I could do some better stuff over there, and I want to improve in this particular area.
Yeah. And it starts that assessment piece. And again, not to use consulting as a cliche, but there's a reason why there's an assessment step. Very first step when you do a consulting project is just to understand your baseline. And I think until we take a step back sometimes for even our own personal situation, you're not even really aware of where you are as far as baseline. So on Monday, to continue to use the racing euphemism, the first thing I did, the other part of assessment is assess the goal itself. So I did some research on how to prepare for a 10K, like how many times a week do I need to run? Is that feasible for me? Does that feel good? Does it feel like that's something that I'm going to look forward to? So just in this particular example, in a 10K, you don't have to run every single day, which for me was a huge benefit. If you're training for a marathon or a half marathon, you pretty much are running every single day. And I know my body, running every single day for me is not great for my body. I start to have more pain and repetitive injury and etc. So again, is the 10K the right goal? part of it was for me doing the research around, is this something that is feasible for me to complete because it's going to fit into my life? You guys know I like to jump on my spin bike from time to time. So this still allows me to have the rhythm that I know that I enjoy. The other element here that I think is really important, and as Blake and I broke this down into steps, is assessing if the goal is going to give you some type of immediate positive feedback. And so I think sometimes people set Mount Everest goals, and not only are they complex, but in order to feel good about it, you have to hit a particular milestone that's going to take some time. So in this circumstance, running a 3 mile for me gives me some runner's high, some endorphins. I feel really good right after. So there's a lot of incentive to stick with it that's immediate. So the days that I run, I feel really good right after I get it done, and it feels like I'm making progress. Times typically tick down pretty quickly as you're running 3 to 4 times a week. So again, it's all about, it seemed we said this at the very beginning, it seems like such an easy thing to set a goal, but to do it well and to actually make it achievable and to really assess whether or not this is the right goal to select and how complex is that goal to hit. And then also, are you going to have some immediate return on investment? So you're incentivized. Human behavior is not that challenging to figure out. Some incentive to keep going.
Yeah. So you're talking about some of the things that set people up for success is by, identifying obviously what's realistic, that's to get into that SMART goal format and everything. But here's the other thing too, is we can take the flip side of this coin, is what are some common pitfalls for people to avoid? And so when you're looking at this goal setting process, and again, this first episode, we're sort of laying the foundation of what we're going to get into in the next couple of episodes, as well as giving you some exercises and tips and tricks and things, but also let's expose you to some of the pitfalls. A lot of times what people end up doing that sets them up for failure instead of success is they try to take on too much. So the saying is, to focus on everything is to achieve nothing. And so I might look at that assessment, as I mentioned, I might say, okay, hey, you know what, in terms of my career, I've got these 3 goals. In terms of my relationships and love with my spouse and my kids and everybody around in my circle, I've got these very specific 5 things that I want to do. And then the money situation, I want to get a savings to a certain level, or I want to do this investment. And I got 3-4 goals there. And, and then it's the personal growth stuff, and you end up coming with by the end of the list, you're looking at, you're like, fuck, I want to take on 20 major things. Wow, great. Let's go get it. And then, you make progress on 1, you put very little effort or focus in like 7 of them. You got these other ones that are and you end up not getting the immediate gratification that you're talking about, Stacie, only purely because you've spread yourself too damn thin. So the pitfall is really all about focus. So when you go and do this assessment, it's okay to have the list of 20. So let me rewind just a second. If you need to, go hit the back button 15 seconds and listen to it again. I'm not saying to not set up goals in each of those pillars of your life, but what you choose to actually put an active, intentional effort on achieving, say it's January 1st again, you need to focus that list down. The other goals can sit there in the hopper and they can wait their turn. And that's an exercise that becomes difficult for people of choosing, what am I going to do and what am I not going to do? In business, we would say this is the active, the definition of strategy is sort of deciding where we're not going to play. We've got all these opportunities in front of us. Our strategy is we're going to really do these 2 things, even though the other 4 are options. We're not going to focus on those. That's sort of I'm simplifying way down, but that's the simple definition of what a strategy session typically is like for a business. It's really no different for a person. You can have 20 things you can go do. You just can't do them all at once. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and then somebody will probably comment and say, "I can do it all," and everybody, don't tell people they can't. No, I'm not trying to limit people. I'm trying to say, look, to set yourself up for success is an active exercise in saying no or not right now to certain things in order to highlight the few that are going to bring the most value to you immediately or today or in the next, say quarter.
Yes. And these can be micro goals to get to a bigger goal. So in our example, I could be doing a 10K to get to a marathon. So my ultimate goal could be to run a marathon. It is, by the way, not my ultimate goal. So let me just put that out there. I'm not looking to do that. But it could be, so I would, again, it's breaking it into bite-sized pieces in a way that gets you maybe to a longer term goal. Some other things to consider we've talked about on this podcast is, does this have a natural rhythm for you? So whatever you're trying to integrate into your life, is it easy to remember? Is it once a week? Is it every day? But is it Tuesdays, Thursdays, and sometimes on Fridays? Those are harder things to end up integrating. The other thing is to habit stack. We talked about atomic habits, I think, on the very first episode of this season. And that is, this is something that Blake and I both took away from Atomic Habits that I think is very valuable. So, for example, in my running instance, I work out in the morning. So I'm really just habit stacking on a habit I already have, which is I'm integrating on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, my running into a slot that I already have slated. So I think continue to apply the things that we've talked about before to this exercise. And it is about planning. And that's why we're doing a whole one episode on the planning of a goal. It seems like this is such an easy thing. Our whole mantra is life is hard, we make it simple. What we're trying to do for you is help you find simplicity to get to success.
Yeah, so that you bring up, another potential pitfall for people is they put the goal too grandiose, too grand, which there's no issue that I have with setting a very large goal in front of yourself. But what the pitfall is typically people don't break that down and celebrate the little goals that ultimately stack up to get you to that. So if we use the fitness example again, we'll keep on that one. If you want to work that marathon in, that's fine. You can still have a thematic goal or a theme around, I want to get to a fitness level and a runner's level that I can do a marathon. And maybe you even put the deadline on is that I want to do the Boston Marathon and I want to do it in 2022. Mm-hmm. Seems like it's way far out there. So guess what? That is no more than a North Star. It's a guiding light. It's a vision or a mission, if you will, for a personal goal. You have to then backstep that into my actual goal that I'm focusing on are the habits and the behaviors that are going to set me up for a 10K that I'm going to do in 45 days from now.
Yeah.
Now that I achieve that, I want to do another 10K a month later, and then I want to do the 20K.
Right.
Or whatever.
Half marathon or whatever.
Those are the milestones that you get in there. So again, first episode, pitfalls, things that work. You do the assessment. You figure out, where do I want to play? Where are the things that I want to improve? And as you start to think about what's working in those areas, what isn't working in those areas, naturally, you're going to start to think about the goals and the things that you want to achieve. Be okay with scaling that back. Be okay with not going after the big, huge, I want to lose 45 pounds in 90 days. Be okay with, hey, you know what? I want to eliminate sugar 6 days out of a week.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That is a great piece that's going to lead you to that.
It is. It's a micro goal to get to a bigger picture. And I think that another thing that I have seen be highly effective for some people, this is not true for everyone, is when I run my 10K on, I think it's January 16th or something, what am I going to celebrate with? So set the celebration of, I'm going to, buy this or go out and do that or whatever. So something that you value, something that you covet, give yourself that celebration. And I think sometimes articulating that in advance. And that's the for us, we decided that, for most people, the accountability comes from saying it, stating it, posting it, speaking it, being accountable. It looks, again, everyone's different as to what holds them accountable to something. Think about the last time that you set a goal and you hit it. How did you hold yourself accountable? Because that is very unique for people. And so for me, I just put this on our podcast that I'm going to run a 10K. So I feel very accountable at this point, but also I put it out on social media. I've been in fitness for a long time. I have a lot of people that follow me in fitness and, may pay attention to the progress, but it's more about my internal storytelling that for me, it's public, it's real, and now I'm committed to it. And so whatever you need to commit to the goal, have that part of your planning process. So we're going to step you through these for your exercise in this episode. But that for me is kind of this final piece is make it real by make yourself accountable, hold yourself accountable.
Yep, absolutely. So, the first one here, I think we've just given you guys some things to think about, some things that work really well in goal setting, some potential pitfalls that people typically fall into. And so we're going to wrap this particular episode, this first part of the 3-part series, with giving you an exercise to do that's centered around the assessment to get a current look at where you're at so you know what you want to focus on or where you want to create your goals. In the next episode, as Stacie mentioned, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of how do you break down the actual setting of a goal. So we're going to take you through that process and something that we've seen work. And then hopefully you'll join us for the last part of it, which really is how do you put a system around it to ensure a higher level of success in achievement of that goal. And we've touched on a couple elements of each of those within this first one. So anything else for the listener? I guess before we get into the exercise, Stacie?
No, just, be intentional about the first part of this. I think you could sort of think it feels kind of silly to do this exercise, but this is an exercise that coaches and consultants and strategic planners use for a reason. And I think in reflecting back on when I've been successful, this is something that I've done.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I want you guys to do is this is part of the exercise. You don't have to do it right now, but I'm going to tell you what it is that you need to get 5 pieces of paper. Okay, we're going to have 1 piece of paper for each of those 5 pillars of life. And I'm going to give those to you guys again. So if you were driving, pause it, wait till somewhere you can write these down. You can find it on a Google search. It's readily available. First one, again, is relationships and love. Second one is career. Third is money and time creation. The fourth is health and fitness. And the fifth one is personal and spiritual growth. And what you're going to want to do is with each one of those pieces of paper, just write one of the pillars at the top of it. Then you need to break that piece of paper into 3 sections. So just draw a horizontal line across a third of the way down and 2/3 of the way down. In the first section, time block yourself 30 seconds. Don't overthink this. Look at that title, and in the section immediately below it, take 30 seconds and just write down whatever words or short statements come to mind right off the bat. As you look at health and fitness, what comes to mind? Write it down. In the second or the middle section, you're going to spend a few minutes writing down a few short sentences of, in your current state of things, what are you really happy with of how your current situation in health and fitness is? What are you really happy with currently? And then the last section is the flip side of that coin. What are you currently not happy or not satisfied with in regards to your current situation of that particular pillar? And so once you've completed that exercise, that's going to be the foundation that sets you up for the goal setting process. So again, 5 pieces of paper, 5 pillars of life, quick 30-second, what comes to mind as I think about this? And then the second and the third sections are a few short sentences of what am I really happy with in regards to this? Last one, what am I not so happy with in regard to this? So before you listen to next week's episode, please complete that exercise. It's going to be a big part of what we build upon. And anything else, Stacie, as far as this episode goes?
Just that we will post on social, one of these examples for both Blake and I, and just to give you some guidance on as you start doing this process. And again, to Blake's point earlier, the intention here is not to have 15 goals. But if we do create 15 goals out of this, you're going to really focus on one, at least at this point. So this is a kind of an exhaustive exercise on purpose, and then we'll kind of hone in next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to our show. You can find Blake and I on social media channels at Blake Rayhans and at Stacie Mallon.
Be sure to follow Optimized AF on Instagram and rate and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. See you next time.